Hey everybody, it's Jason Blah here, and I'm just sitting here drinking my morning coffee. Getting ready to start my day. Eat breakfast, get some squatting done. Because that's what I do, I squat. And that brings me to kind of one of the points. You know, this has stirred up a bunch of controversy of me making a video the other day about Ethylene X and the accessories and everything else. We're going to set aside the fact that those were terrible accessories for raw squatters. And I made the point that accessories are not necessary, that there are two schools of thought. I'm not saying that either school of thought is right or wrong. Sorry guys, it's bad weather out there, it's thundering. That was the point I made. There are two divergent schools of thought. Both have produced world record holders. Both have produced champions and large numbers of both. Of that, there's people who rely heavily on accessories. And there are people who use very few accessories to no accessories, or a lot of their accessories, if they do them, are very, very close variations. Meaning, when we're talking about squat accessories that are close variations, a beltless pause squat. That's a squat accessory, right? Even though a lot of people say, oh, well, to me that's a squat. A lot of people, that's just what they do for a squat. That is their squat, depending on the person. But that's the point. Or say a pin squat. The bar path doesn't change, though. Those are both variations of the squat that use the same bar path and same basic range of motion. Sometimes the pin squats cut a little bit out. But why do people do pin squats? So that they can find an ideal bar path. In other words, when you can find your position of your body, whether it's you're starting 2 inches above parallel or 6 inches above parallel or wherever you're setting to start off the pins, wherever when you start doing a weight that's hard to do, you're going to find that sometimes there's only one body position where you can break it off the pins. That means that's the position where your ideal leverages are, and that pin squat just teaches you how to squat. That's what you're doing with it. It teaches you to find your ideal leverages and body position. It's still basically a squat. It's intended to replicate a perfect squat for you, is what it's intended to do. Right? That's the whole point of a movement like that. That's what it's training. And again, the pause squats train you to learn to stay tight in the bottom and develop strength and speed from the bottom when you're not using the stretch reflex. It builds starting strength at the bottom. So that's sometimes all some people use, if any, accessories. And the whole point came up of, well, not using accessories is laziness because you just don't want to do work. And the absurdity of that is that, no, people don't understand that when we talk about minimalist training, we're not talking about putting minimal amounts of work in. It's about minimal exercise selection. You don't do exercises that you don't need to do. Why? So you can put more focus on the stuff that is important. In other words, for people who are going to do minimalist style squatting, that doesn't mean they just do 3 sets of squats every week. It means instead of accessory work, they do more squats. Because what do we add accessories in? We add accessories in to bring up weak points, things like that. Or we add them in because we're too tired or fatigued to do more of the primary lift because it's taxing on us. Well, let's take a perfect example, the system I run right now, Bulgarian training. Anyone who's ever done it is never going to say it's lazy. Come in to hit a training max or a daily minimum, a heavy single every day on squats, 5, 6, up to 7 days a week. I do 6 right now. And I have a play around day where I goof off. So I do 6. I start my morning off with squats. I build up to my daily minimum, and I'm increasing it every single week, and I have been for a while. I've been increasing it for pretty much 80 pounds now, linearly. So you come in and you do that. So on that system, yeah, you have the option to do some accessories if you start stalling, but what do most people do? You add more volume. In other words, you start adding a back offset. If you start stalling and you need more workload because you need more hypertrophy, more training volume to drive adaptation, you do more squatting. People say, well, how do you do more squatting if you're already squatting to a heavy single every day? Well, okay, perfect example. Let's say I stall coming up here at 500. Might happen. That's pretty reasonable. When I start hitting 500 every day, my squat might slow. You start adding in, say, a back offsets with 15% less weight. So if I start stalling at 500 to get more I might not be getting enough training. 6 heavy singles every week is only going to give you so much adaptation. You can stall on that eventually, obviously, right? Well, take 15% off. That brings you down to what, approximately 425, right? About 425-ish. And you do a back off triple. You do it on days where you're strongest. right? That's where you introduce it at first, because every day you're going to have days where the bar is faster or slower. You'll add it on the days where you're the strongest, where you have the most energy left, where the heavy single felt the lightest, your daily minimum. You can do back off work on that days. And so you might add that 3 days a week. So now you've added 3 extra sets of squats every week. Start adapting again. If that's not enough, you might start trying to work them in every day, or the days where you feel the best, you add in a second one. So now you're hitting a pretty much your training max squat every day, or your daily minimum, and now you're doing up to 2 back off triples with 15% less weight. So 85% of your training daily minimum, you're now doing up to 2 back off triples behind it. In theory, if you were to do 2 of those every day to add more volume, you might be adding 12 sets of fairly heavy squats, because 85% of your single, we're still dealing with a heavy. That's above, that's at least 80%. That's in the range of 80% of your max. Doing up to 12 more sets of it every week. That's what you do in place of accessories. As the system I'm using is one example. Now, there are other examples that people use. There's all these Russian squat programs to where people are doing 20, 25, 30 sets of squats every week with no accessories. So you guys see the point. When people say silly things like not doing accessory work is laziness because you don't want to do more work, it's kind of like, but then those of us who buy into the other camp, and I've done both methods, by the way. People need to understand that I've even done the West Side system. Not exactly West Side, because I didn't train at West Side, but I followed their template and their philosophy, and there's a big difference there. Louis Simmons doesn't like people claiming they're training West Side if they don't train at West Side. But you can incorporate their philosophies and ideas. I've done all that. I prefer the other approach. I like it better. I think it carries over better. Because I believe that specific strength carries over great to general strength. Because if you master key big lifts and put as much effort into them as possible, at least your 5 to 6 basic movement patterns, you do tend to be strong at everything, right? You do tend to get strong at everything. You don't find people who bench 400, squat 600, and deadlift 700 pounds, and who can overhead press 250. You usually find those people are strong at anything. They grab just about any exercise and they can lift some respectable weight at it. They're never weak. Kind of see the point there. The high specificity training can create general strength. But the point we get over to, I feel that it carries over better. Now, does that mean you don't ever need any supplemental work? No. I would never tell anybody just squat, bench, and deadlift. I would never say that. That's ludicrous. I think people need to be doing some overhead pressing. I think people need to do some upper back work. It's just a good idea. It helps prevent injuries, for one thing, because you're not getting the same amount of upper back pulling just deadlifting. You're not getting yourself the stability you need to protect your shoulders on your bench press and give yourself a stable pressing platform. People need to do a few extra lifts beyond their competition lifts at a minimum. Like for me right now, I train 5 basic lifts a day. Plus I do extra grip work and little things like that. Sometimes I do some GPP, other stuff. I do a little bit of supplemental stuff, but the core of my training revolves around, right now, 5 lifts every day. That's what it revolves around. And for me, I've started adding volume with those lifts that are stalling. What am I doing? I'm adding back off work. I'm just adding more volume with the same lift. Because at the end of the day, adding more volume with a lighter weight with the same lift will accomplish just about everything you want to do with an accessory exercise. We're not talking about supplemental lifts because, again, there are no competition rows. The barbell row or any sort of row is not really a competition lift, so that's not obviously a main lift. But, doing some rowing, actually doing a lot of rowing is probably not a bad idea. But here's the thing. Do you need 7 different types of rows? Probably not. You could pick 1 or 2 types of rows or upper back pulls and do a ton of them. You can do a lot of volume on them. I used to do up to 30 sets of rows every week. I used to do that on camera. In fact, getting ready for my last powerlifting meet. Last one I did, where I took my bronze medal at an invite-only meet, got invited to Worlds. I was doing 30 sets of barbell rows every week. They were triples, so I would do 10 by 3, 3 different days, right? So some supplemental lifts need to be there, but we're still dealing with exercise minimalism. If you're doing less than about 8 exercises, 8 or 9 exercises, big lifts every week in general, that's minimalism. Even if you're spending 2 hours a day working on them, that's exercise minimalism. So this whole idea that not doing accessory lifts is somehow laziness, I don't understand, because the same people, when you bring that, who say that, will then say, well, because I can't just do more squatting, I'm too tired. And it's like, you guys are too tired to do a few extra sets of squats every week when your squat stalls, but you tell people who don't want to add accessory lifts that they're being lazy. It's like, get your lazy ass under the barbell and do some more squatting. Seriously, guys, it's going to carry over better. And I'm not saying some extra pause work, or maybe if you have a bar path issue that you need to correct, some pin work isn't a bad idea. But again, you're doing that so that you teach yourself to stay tighter and find a more ideal bar path, so that you get stronger through more efficient leverages, not necessarily by building more muscle. It's basically technique work. Things like pin squats are technique work. That's what they are. They're not primary lifts for that reason. They're just there to teach you how to squat more efficiently by finding a better body positions and bar paths for yourself, so you get better leverages. But yeah, this whole idea that people who aren't doing accessory work, that it's somehow lazy, absolutely ludicrous. I would say to the people who say that, well, you not doing more squatting is, kind of lazy. But you know what? We're all entitled to our opinion. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.